Chapter 10. When I slowly came round, I discovered my hands and feet were tied. Struggling momentarily, I could hear the voices of at least two men close by. The place stank. An ache throbbed at the back of my head, and I felt sick. I could taste vomit in my throat and my chest hurt. My instinct was to keep trying to wriggle out of the knots, but a second, perhaps even deeper instinct caused me to still. Survival. I could feel the firepiece wedged inside the back of my trousers. Having it reassured me, but I knew if they found it, it could also prove serious trouble. It meant whoever had bound me wasn't that smart either. Without moving at all, I listened to the voices. "Weasel'll have to make a decision soon," came one. Yes, I know. "We could kill him the old-fashioned way. Yous understand? Into the—" I heard laughter. "But he must be alive. He's no use dead, and him going to make us big dob. Yous got in touch with them shelling uppers, them robbers?" "Aye. They just want him on the hoof for big dob. We could smash him out again. Too dangerous, then we'll not give out for a bad un. Then we'll have to come here, see and do with him, give us big credit. He ain't no spy or naught, he ain't no trainer on the lookout." For stoners, I imagined, and I was learning fast. The voice continued, "We ain't being tricked here." "No, sniff him, nothing, him on the run all right." "You sure him's perfect?" "Course I be." "You looked all over, you searched him?" "Tapped him down, you see him too. We'll strip him when the robbers come." "No, we've got to meet up at the pig pens." I heard more laughter. I was terrified and curious simultaneously. They wanted me in perfect shape. I was not. They had not witnessed my slight limp, seen my ankle, thank holy fuck. But what exactly they had in mind I could not decide. But I had ideas. Though they had tapped me down, they had missed the fire, missed its slender bullets, missed the digital, missed everything. They were either stupid or in a hurry. One of them came back in the room where I was held, and I slumped back out of consciousness, or so it would have seemed. I thanked their sloppiness. Were they infected by the disease, perhaps? "The bastard, he out?" "Him out." A hand touched my face. The smell from its skin was almost overwhelming, but I had to keep loose and still. "He have a pretty face, eh? Face soft." The other voice I had heard came into the room also. As it talked, I heard it grow louder and close. "A face which ain't been wiped, eh? No reason. Got him his nose and ears and eyes, like a dag helper. Pull them beautiful things open." Trying not to react in panic, I let the rough fingers spring my lids apart, and I desperately focused into nothingness, letting my pupils drop. "We should see what he's like as a man, eh?" "What you mean?" "See if he ain't rubbed nothing else away." They laughed again. Then a terrible scream came from outside, and I felt their attention trapped. I almost gave myself away by taking too quick a breath. "What beant?" "Take a look." A voice came more distant, but I could still smell the rank odour of a face close to mine. "Them's got a chimp! Quick now! Them got a chimp!" The rankness faded. "They're going to burn him!" "We going to burn him!" the first voice shouted. "Let's go!" "What about this un? Him's out for a while, and he ain't going nowhere. We's be back soon enough. You want to see the chimp burn or not? Him real big." I waited till they hadn't spoken for some time. Fear kept my eyes closed, but a sensation forced me to risk opening them, and it was the strength of survival again. The floor I lay on sweated with stale urine and crawled with slimy insects. They had half propped me up, but nevertheless it was difficult and painful to get to my feet. Before I could do so, I rolled against the floor and my face stuck to its greasy surface. The back of my head flared up in a lightning strike of pain, but all my will gave both leg and stomach muscles the power to raise me. Standing up, I looked about the dark and dirty room. Heading for a doorway away from where I thought the subs had left, I hobbled over debris. As quickly and as carefully as I could, I jumped over some piled bricks and through the empty door frame. The next room had no doors, was small, but there was a window without its glass on the right-hand wall. Instinctively, I went to below where the light shone. I was sweating with fear, and occasional strikes of pain shot down the back of my skull. There was a loosening of my bowels too. Those men meant business. Rubble from the window allowed me enough height to peek through. The view gave out onto the side of another brick building, but I heard the scream of an animal and sub from the distance. As I shifted my tied ankles, I felt the crack of glass, and it was this that gave me the idea to free myself. Sitting down on the rubble, I pulled my arms to one side and forced the rope onto the edge of a shard of glass. Slowly I rubbed against it. It seemed an eternity before the rope shredded and my wrists became free. As I pulled my arms loose, I could see a trail of blood. This pleased me. Though the cut was sharp and deep, I was glad that my blood ran clean. As I freed my ankles and then took a nose blow to the wound, I heard a sound from the next room. At least one of the men must have come back to check on me. Sweat soaked my skin. With adrenaline stiffening my bad ankle, I hoisted myself up onto the ledge of the rotting wooden frame and heaved myself through. As I landed the other side, I heard the grunt of one of the men. I went to run away, but as I backed against the brick wall, I felt the shape of the fire. A plan took hold. I let the sub see me run back into the building next to where I had been caught. Inside there, I waited for him. He had called for no assistance, and so I let his arrogance catch him out. As he headed to the doorway, I struck him hard on the crown of his head with the butt of the pistol. It saved a bullet, but he wasn't knocked out. The sub began to mouth words and gained strength in his voice, but I shoved the fire into the side of his nose by his piggy eye and said, "Start speaking, you bastard. Who are you?" He wouldn't say anything at first, but I told him I had nothing to lose and began to squeeze the trigger. "Speak." "You'n upper, mister." "Who cares? We thought you'n a sub." I thought he was lying, something in his manner. "What were you going to do with me, eh?" I shoved the pistol nozzle in hard to his flesh. "Given to body snatchers." "Who are they?" He looked genuinely bemused. "Them's body snatchers." "You're going to give me to them?" He nodded. "Alive?" He nodded again. "What are they going to do?" Again he looked bemused. "Tell me!" I shrieked. "Spare parts," he mumbled. "What?" "You's pure, you's like an angel. They's pay good money for you's limbs and stuff." I went to smash his face. The sub almost spewed. "Where's the other, eh? Tell me." "Them's roasting big chimp." "You told the body snatchers?" He nodded. "Where are they?" "We're going to meet them at the outskirts, by the pig pens." "Where?" The long huts, where them piggies live." "You mean subs?" He spat. "Angels," he laughed. "What time?" "Just afore the sunfall." "Which huts?" "Them's called WSW5. True Angel." "I should kill you, you bastard." "No, we's poor. We's got it. We started. Right enough. We need dob. We need help. Need to escape Sue." I smashed the fire into his temple and he went out cold. All my fears and suspicions about my world seemed to be true. It was as if I belonged nowhere. There was a trade in limbs from subearth to the upper world. The Eluluk, with their perfect octogenarian bodies, were most likely the recipients. Their explanations seemed so feeble to me now, but it was only recently that I needed to give those explanations much thought. My limbs, my eyes, my brain might have been cut up and stored for further use. And if the doctor was correct, I had more to worry about than a couple of sub-amateurs. The catcher and his beasties would make me a zombie. As a zombie I would lie in the long huts. As a zombie I would be cut up, feel everything from inside my mind. Then I would pray for the disease. Then I would envy the insane ones. Shaking my thoughts free, I looked around the dark room. I needed to escape that part of the town, needed to find Z, but I wanted to prove conclusively the words of the sub. I wanted to be at the long huts when the body snatchers turned up. I wanted to see their ghoulish eyes, find out if they were uppers or subs, find out if they hunted stray uppers too, maybe do them some damage. I held the fire firmly. The sub lying at my feet made a groan. Quickly and viciously I struck him again. A bruise sat on another bruise, and a thin red line of blood trickled from the corner of his right eye. The place brutalized me. In the distance, somewhere outside, a roar erupted from a huge sounding crowd. I knew I was in danger. The sub-grapevine would sound. Limbless creatures would cart themselves from street corner to street corner. Noseless boys and fingerless girls would rush between the gnarled legs of the adults. Sex subs, body dealers, would whisper. They knew now that I was on the run and dangerous, but they didn't know what I looked like, and I had something going for me. I had the disease. Bizarrely, that would help me escape. Hurrying from the rear of the building, having worked my way through room after dismal room, I stepped into a courtyard. A sub-woman with a scar running down her face looked at me suspiciously. "You all reet, mother?" I asked jauntily. "Greetings, Tui," she replied guardedly. I limped past her. She turned away. I didn't know exactly where I was in the town. The late autumn sun, for it was already the last month of the year, dipped behind the crumbling tenements. Fires grew brighter. I exaggerated my limp. A girl came up to me. "Want a good un?" I smiled. "You a nice fuck, hun. Want to lie with I?" I smiled again but kept walking. "No like I?" "You's pretty," I said, "but have to find—" I realised I couldn't say where Z was meant to be hiding out, but instinctively the name WSW5 came out. "What you wants there?" "Business," I said cheerily. "I'll tells you." "Thanks." "For a price?" "How much?" 25. "Credits?" "You can have I for that," she said, pulling down her ragged blouse. I turned away from her dirty breast. "Here, tell I." And so it was settled that I would go first to the Long Huts. From there I planned to sleep outside of Wayland and come back the next day to find Z. I reckoned by then it would be safer. By then I would know some more of the truth of Upperworld, and I had time. With the girl's directions, I limped through the darkening streets. Part of my way led across wasteland. The way would save me time and there would be less people, but the girl also warned me that it was the type of landscape adored by chimpanzees. The faces of the subs I saw all seemed to eye me with suspicion. I avoided their look, avoided the mutilations of the disease, avoided the shredded flesh. There was a smell of putrefaction in the air that the braziers could not dispel. The night was coming on. Cold was descending as the sun dipped below its distant horizon. I imagined my wife at home, worried about me, our child growing, oblivious to the fate of its father. Heading across the wasteland, I took the pistol from my back pocket and held it tight in my sweating hand. Light seemed different in that landscape. The last month sector had begun. Xmas loomed. There was an eerie silence and detachment from the horror of the rest of Wayland. It was almost like a graveyard of old, when bodies weren't burnt or disposed of in government chemical plants of eternal rest. Yes, I was growing cynical about everything except for my wife and baby. Yet it was Z I was desperate to meet again. There was a flatness suddenly about the ground I trod across. I stubbed my unfeeling big toe through the soft leather of my shoe. It had been a mistake to wear leather shoes. They marked me out. I dirtied them up some more and sat on a wall that stood out from the general rubble. And it was then that I heard the silence rented. Looking across the wasteland into the distance, with the fires of Wayland burning against the cold blue of the sky or the gathering sunset, I saw it. One lone chimpanzee had raised itself up and was looking in my direction, dropping itself down onto the back of its hands. Even from the distance it was, I could see its grinning face and twisted mouth. It shrieked when it saw me get up, and more chimpanzees gathered about it. I knew how vicious these animals could be, especially this mutant strain. Running as fast as I was able, I could hear the chimps screaming after me. I needed to get to a building. The stones and bricks beneath my feet made running awkward, but could only imagine the chimps gliding over the terrain. Their forelimbs hung low, their legs strong. I didn't want to look behind, but the sense that they were catching me up grew overwhelmingly terrifying. My ankle ached and dragged my pace down. As I turned my head to sneak a glance at the beasts, I tripped and fell to the floor. My cut hand reopened its wound, and I tasted blood and dust in my mouth. The pistol went from my grasp. If I used the gun, I knew the subs would be sent crazy. I had to make decisions. I crawled forward to retrieve the pistol. The chimps were scrabbling up close. I was utterly terrified. With the fire in my hand, I rolled over with the chimps only a half length away. There was nothing to be done but fire. I let go a shot. The leading chimp was caught on its shoulder. The bullet ripped through the fur and flesh and seemed to burst the shoulder open. Its scream was wild and horrific. It stopped and fell backwards. The other chimp screamed a high-pitched squeal and jumped up and down near the stricken creature. Gathering courage, they made to come again, but tentatively this time. I let another shot off and grimaced at the crack it made in the darkening air. There was enough light for me to see steam rising from the chimp's fur. Another chimp was struck. They made an easy target. Part of her head splattered into a frightful mess. All ran. The two I had shot moaned as they retreated slowly, one of them slumping agonizingly into death. I stood up and continued to head for a building opposite. Inside the stinking building, which smelt of chimpanzee muck, I loaded 2 bullets into the fire. It shot 5. I had 3 spare. I felt tired. My head ached. Blood seeped continuously from my hand, and night was falling. I imagined street gangs of subs looking for the source of the gunfire. I imagined the chimpanzees growing in number. In the end, the fear got too much, and I knew I had to make a run for it before dark came completely. Rushing from the building, I let off 2 more shots out of panic and ran for my life. I ran until I could hardly breathe, slumped down in some undergrowth and waited and listened. Escaping from the bushes, I headed back towards houses. I looked out for the chimney the girl had spoken of as a reference. It was close. I'd made it. I wasn't far from the long huts, and with luck I knew the body snatchers would be waiting. The gun was hidden as I limped back into the narrow streets. Keeping an eye on the top of the chimney stack, I used it as my bearing. The girl had been worth her money. A band of subs marched down the street with torches blazing. I dipped into a dark doorway. My heart froze. As they passed, I heard them shouting. They were chimp hunting, it seemed. I slumped down. I had to keep going. A noise close to me brought back my senses. A rat was sniffing round my right foot. I lashed out and booted its soft body. I spat onto the ground, stood and pulled myself mentally and physically together. Stepping into the street again, I prepared to meet the villains who would have cut me up live, sold me to the Ellerlook, or whoever did their dirty work. I was no nearer Z, and one day had almost elapsed, but I was still alive and still free. As the girl had described, from the base of the old chimney I could see the round hill and the long huts sprawling upon it. I swallowed some saliva. A hand instinctively felt the fire for reassurance. I had finally set myself apart.